the first ever Cyber World Cleanup Day with Wordfast. There's some good friends of mine who started the Cyber World Cleanup Day last year. It's kind of in relationship to the World Cleanup Day, if anybody's ever heard about that, where everybody around the world goes up and cleans up trash one single day. Started in Estonia back in 2008, 2009-ish. And then they started realizing, well, hey, our digital footprint is getting bigger and bigger at kind of an exponential rate, and that has an impact as well on the environment. So we should do some cyber digital cleanup as well. And as a translator, I kind of said to myself, yeah, I need to take some time to clean up some junk. I've got lots of stuff in there that I've been um, keeping, and just it's more, I used to say to myself, oh, data is important. Google, why is it such a valuable company? It's because it has so much data. And that's true for us. I mean, our data that we keep, our translation memories, our glossaries are very valuable. But at the same time, there's some of that data that's redundant. So we have it twice, three times, four times saved in different locations. Sometimes it's not really useful and it's not being used at all. And even if we get beyond the scope of what we do as translated, we also have our smartphones, we also have our social media, and there's just lots of things that we're probably not aware of. So the whole point of this today is to look at a broader scope, but also we'll look at a narrow scope with Wordfast, since you are, translators mostly, and I'm sure you're interested in cleaning up some of your data as well. Feel free to add comments during the presentation. I'll take some questions, and like I said, it's supposed to be hands-on, and so I will just double check to make sure that everybody's there. Okay, and we're seeing. So let's go to my presentation. And like I said, this is just to raise environmental awareness about the environmental impact of digital technology. And in time, the goal is to get everybody around the world on board, and get companies doing this event, and get associations doing this event, and just get people in general to think about it one day. At first, they were doing it at the same time as the World Cleanup Day in September, and they decided to dissociate it and do it in the spring, which I think is a good idea because it's two separate things, and it allows more focus on this digital cleanup. So that's it. So this is, they spread it out over the past 5 days, and the 20th today is kind of the last day to really do it, and the big focus. And what I think is really interesting about it too is you'll see as we go through this presentation is that there's going to be a focus on measuring your impact. Please turn your microphones off. Please turn your microphones off, and you don't have to have your video on if you don't want to, and we can put videos on later, and we can have some chat. And I think there's room for 150 people in this meeting. So well, let's go on then with the presentation. So let's start with just asking ourselves the question, what is our impact, our digital impact? Do you know what it is? And if we were to compare the amount of data that's stored and the type of impact that has on the environment, it's roughly equivalent to 2.5 times that of the country of France. And 4% of CO2 emissions are related to data, and that's roughly equivalent to all the air travel that we do. A lot of what we use on our smartphone, it's actually 90% of the carbon impact comes from its fabrication. And that's kind of interesting because we'll see maybe I think a little bit later on that a lot of people change their smartphones really quickly, like an average of 2 years, and they don't really have enough time to, and it still works, and they just don't give it enough time to offset that carbon impact. Oh yeah, it's in my slide. There it is. Yeah, 2 years. and a lot of people change it even though they work. And it's the same case with me. I was thinking about changing my phone, and I was talking to my friend who organizes this event, and he was saying, you know, this is a huge problem, people changing their phones. And I kept my phone another year and it worked just fine. And so the little things like that, if we get into the habits, little things can make a big impact that can add up. So obviously there's a lot of people who want to cut down on their digital use, and we're spending way too much time on the internet. I'm sure we all are, in light of what's going on in the world. You've got almost up to 10% of the world's electricity is used by the internet, which is huge, especially when, you know, a lot of it isn't from renewable sources still to this day. And we need a lot more energy to produce a smartphone than a car. So it's kind of you getting an idea that this is having a huge impact, and we're not really, I don't think we're paying enough attention to it because we don't really see the cost of it. It's just not apparent to us because we can just get more and more data. We can get larger and larger hard drives on our computers, and we can buy external hard drives, and it's just kind of an excuse to be lazy about what we're doing and cleaning up. And it's really similar to what we have with our house. And if you have an attic and you've got a basement, and the more storage space you get, the more you're going to fill it with junk that you never use and never need. So first of all, what you should do is right now kind of think about what is it that you want to clean up today, and focus on that. So I propose that we look at 4 different things, and I'll give you some time in between each to have a look at your computer. I'll give you some like little breaks of 5 minutes or so you can kind of dig through and do some cleanup. And what I propose that we'll do is we'll look at our mailboxes, and then we'll look at our hard drives and our phones, and then our social media accounts, and just some ways that we can reduce our impact and get rid of some obsolete data. So let's start with our email. And like I said, what's really interesting about this event is that we're going to measure the impact of what we've done. So in order to measure the impact, I've created a form that you can fill out afterwards, and I'm going to give away a free renewal or license to randomly to somebody who fills it out. So that's kind of important. If you want to win 200 to 400 euros worth of a license, make sure that you measure the impact. And the way to measure the impact is to look at what you have now, and then to look at what you have after you do some cleanup, okay? So the first thing that you can do on your computer, if you have Outlook or Gmail or Mail, there's a few different ways that you can go ahead and look at how much your email is taking up. So I'll go ahead and show you. If you're on a Mac, if you go onto the little apple in the top left of your screen, and then you click on, I think it's, let me look at it again, it's something like About This Mac, and then you look at storage, and it will show you how much storage your mail is taking up, okay? And then if you are on, oh shoot, I had a couple of other screenshots somewhere about, I don't know where those other ones went. Okay, well, if you're on Outlook, if you go into settings, general, storage or file, the tools to view the currently used storage space. So you can look in Outlook if you're on a PC. If you have like a Gmail account, let's see, the way to do that is I'm gonna go on to a Gmail account right here. And show you. So okay, it should be down. Let's look at this account. I think you have a list. There's some sort of link down here at the bottom left of the screen, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're on your computer, you can go ahead and start doing this. If you have a question, write it in the comments, and we'll see if somebody can help figure out where it is. If you can't turn off features, okay. Now I think it's supposed to be, there's supposed to be some sort of link down here. No? Okay, well then we're just going to go the long way. If you click here under your settings and then see all settings, seriously? I did this the other day and now I'm totally forgetting. Let's see. This is about under the profile picture. Okay. So it wasn't under settings. It's under here, your profile picture, manage your Google account. Sorry. You can prepare and you can prepare for things like this, and it just never works out the way you want it to. And if you go down a little bit, you can see your settings, personal data and personalization, account storage. So you click on manage your storage. So I'm using 8 gigabytes of this 15 gigabyte account. And if you click on the details, you can see how much your Gmail account is taking up. So the whole point is right now just to go in there and to take a screenshot of this or to write it down. Pen and paper works as well. So you have an idea of, okay, I started out with 7.8 gigabytes, and then at the end of this, I'm down to 4 gigabytes. So I got rid of 3 gigabytes of data, okay? So let me just check to see if there are any comments. And go to meeting. All right, no comments so far, so we're all good, and everybody should be getting their getting the amount of data that their email account is taking up. Okay. So you have that, and this I kind of prepared a little before, so this is what I was using on my hard drive. When you click on the mail or you hover over it or you click on manage, it will show you how much space. So 323 gigabytes of mail. I'm clearly sending way too much email or receiving too much email. So something's going wrong. Okay, so what can you do to get rid of your emails? So one way to start cleaning up is to think about just getting organized with them and identifying emails that you don't typically use. And one way of, let's see, one thing that I started out doing on my account was going into, first of all, you can go into promotions if you're in Gmail, and you can see that there's all sorts of stuff in there and that's probably old and dated. You could sort that and start selecting things and get rid of it. You can also let's see, you could also look at your social. These kind of take a bunch of emails that are automated emails or things coming from social media. They try and identify that you probably don't need. And you can see I've got one of 29 pages showing 50 emails. And I could also, let's see, so under search mail, if I start looking for size, If I want to get rid of the big stuff that is not necessarily using, please turn off your microphone unless you wanted to make a comment, please. I don't know who has a microphone on, just so we don't have any echoes. Okay. So if I look for anything that's older than 10 megabytes, and you can be going on your computer and doing your own thing. You don't have to be listening to me necessarily. You can see I'm pulling out some emails that have more than 10 gigabytes, and I can see the dates as well of when they were, when they were sent. And maybe if I go all the way back to 2017, are these are these necessarily things that I need to keep stored in my inbox? And what they're probably files that we were sending back and forth. This, for example, I know in particularly this email was, I know where that thing is located. It looks like there's a draft of it as well, this DDL 21707. This thing I know that I've got saved on my computer, and this as well. And here I can select and then go ahead and delete it. And I can kind of work through my email like that. I could use some other filters as well. Let's see, one of the things was, I was doing this the other day on my own email, I think, and it's a little bit in mail, and it was a little bit easier to see. Oh, what I did also is I looked under categories. I think it looked under promotions. There's just a bunch of stuff here that's kind of not really necessary. I know that it's old and it's, newsletters. I could even go crazy and select all 998 conversations in the promotions if I wanted to, and delete them all. I don't know how confident you are. This is a volunteer email address, and I can see that a lot of this stuff is pretty much just newsletters. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it, and just kind of work through and get rid of some old. You could change. I think there's a way. I don't see it. I kind of got this stupid thing in my way. How to sort them in my Gmail. Let's see. No, it's not there. Category promotions, and no, I don't want to do that. Can't remember where it was to sort them based on date, and I don't see that anymore. So let's see. Let me look at my other email and pull that out. And okay, so here, this is that same email account. And I think, yeah, up here I go into mailbox, window, where is it? Message, view, should be under view, sort by, and sort by size. Okay, with the oldest messages on top, and no, that's just so view, and then I'll sort by size. Okay, and there it didn't look like it put the oldest ones on top. No, there it's just sorted by size, with the largest files in my inbox by size. And so I can see I've got some files that were being sent back and forth, 18 megabytes of something back in September. And here's some other files just sharing back and forth. Okay, I could go through and probably go ahead and delete all these. Okay, So there's kind of play around with your filters and sorting, and then you could also I think like that's just a really good way to do it. So do like sort from people, certain people, and then you can kind of look through there and you'll identify, oh, here's, a big group of emails. These are newsletters that are dated and I haven't read, so I can delete them. Um, these are old newsletters as well that I don't need to keep anymore, and I'll get rid of those, and so on. Okay, and you can kind of try and identify people or names and things that you've just been getting, mailing lists of emails back and forth, and kind of get rid of them. Okay, I'm going to stop showing my email before I do something stupid and show you things that I don't want you to see. And let's see, I'm trying to think if there's any other suggestions that they had here. Was, okay, getting rid of, if you have a whole conversation going on and people keep replying to it, you probably have, I've had email threads where there's been like 20 different people, back and forth, and you can get rid of, the 19 initial messages because everything is still in that first thread where people keep replying back and forth on. And then third thing to remember about emails is just doing things as light as possible. I'm sure you've seen when you send a picture, a lot of emails systems now, you can send a picture and it asks you if you want to send in the full version, like high definition. Do you want to send it in a low definition, small, medium, large? So think about it. What's the point of when you're mailing it to them? Is it, they need to print it out on a printer with a picture, or is it just for them to see something? If it's just for them to see on their computer screen, or especially on a mobile telephone, you can probably choose the smallest size. You can compress attachments before sending them. There are ways that you can go into your settings to do a lot of automated cleaning, and I won't show you this right now. Like, I guess we could look at, like, in the settings of your email addresses, you go into preferences, and there's some things that you can do, like when, where was it? Downloads folder, remove unedited downloads. It wasn't there. Let's see. I think like in junk mail, for example, there's some settings in here. Maybe it's on Gmail where you can get rid of your junk mail folder at a certain interval. Maybe like I have to go in here, mailbox behaviors. I think this is it. So here, for example, if I go into my accounts and I can look at my trash mailbox, when do I want to erase junk messages? Well, maybe after 1 month. I tend to check my junk mail folder once every 2 weeks just to make sure nothing slipped through there. And after that, it'll automatically erase all those messages. So you can set up kind of automated rules to get rid of some unwanted, unnecessary email. And also, getting to this inbox is zero. You probably heard about that, where you kind of get through all of your emails and you've got none left. So when you're done doing everything that you've done with your emails and kind of gone through them and emptied out a bunch, then go back to how you looked at what your email is taking up and get a screenshot and look at what the difference is and how many gigabytes, megabytes you got rid of. Okay, so when I was preparing this presentation, I started out, I was at 323.67 and I went down to 287, and there's still a long way to go. And that took me a good, I would say, about a half an hour or an hour just kind of going through and playing around. I think I have an issue on my computer because I sometimes turn on Outlook and Mail, and I think that on Outlook, it's downloaded a bunch of my emails as well. So I've got emails twice downloaded just in 2 different mail systems. And so that's something that I haven't really been able to figure out how to prevent that from happening. So if you're using two different mailers, that could be problematic. And I think that's where all of my email storage is coming from on my computer. Okay, and yeah, it's a great feeling when you do get to like an inbox zero where you've got nothing in there and you can just kind of deal with messages as they come in. I wish you all that feeling one day. And if you want to get there, it's pretty simple. Just go back like 2 weeks prior and select all your email and just archive it, delete it, get rid of it. If it's something super important, people will write back to you. As opposed to having email messages that just go bigger and bigger. I go crazy when I see my mom's phone and she's got notifications on her little email thing. It says like 37,000 or something. It's crazy. And I don't know how she does it. Anyways, let's change gears because the time is running out. I know I promised you about an hour of this. And okay. Thanks, Ruth, for the tip about Outlook. Okay, so how do we clean up our smartphones? Okay, so again, the same thing. Like I said, we're going to be measuring our impact. And the way to do that is to note down what you're currently using on your smartphone. So pick up your smartphone if you're using anything other than Android or iOS. Good for you. I didn't know there were other operating systems out there, but there is probably a way that you can go into your settings and you look under general for, I'm on an iPhone right now, and iPhone storage, and then just take a screenshot or write it down again, how much space you're using on your phone. Okay, just so we can see what we're at right now and what we're going to get rid of and measure that impact. So go ahead and do that if you have your smartphone handy. And so I did this, like I said prior, I was using about 62.4 gigabytes. And there's a lot of recommendations that it has. I don't know about Android, but it'll tell you about how to get rid of some apps that you're not using so you can, offload them. They'll be there in case you do start using them. But I think there's like, there's the Pareto's law, which says that you probably use 20% of your apps 80% of the time, and some of them you just rarely use, or you download them and you think you'll use them, and maybe you start to use it, but then you stop using it. So that's one thing. You can kind of get rid of some unused apps. There's probably, you've got some old conversations. You can auto delete old conversation unless you think it's really important for posterity that you keep all of your text messages that you've ever exchanged. How important is that? It'll also show you things like how many maybe sometimes you have large attachments that were sent by text message or MMS that you can get rid of. This is what was in WhatsApp. For example, if you go specifically into, I noticed that WhatsApp was taking up like most of the space. It's like 10, almost 11 gigabytes on my phone. So it's just people sending all sorts of stuff. And you can see here, I've got some videos that people were sharing with me. There's 84 megabytes of like 8-minute long conferences and stuff. Like, why am I storing this stuff on my phone, right? So you can open that up. Last night I actually did that, and I got rid of, I don't know, I think I got rid of like 4 or 5 gigabytes just with WhatsApp alone, getting rid of a bunch of this stuff. You can look through the chats and see certain chats are larger than others. So like I said, to clean up your smartphone, you can offload the unused apps. Looking just at the storage settings, I think these companies are doing a good job, and they're making it easier for you to see what's being stored on your phone. I mean, it drives me crazy when I'm reaching that capacity and Apple says, "Oh, do you want to bump up your storage?" I think I'm paying like $2 per month for 50 gigabytes of storage. And sometimes I reach that limit, and it's like the next thing is you're gonna have to start paying $5 or $6 per month for storage for useless, pointless data. So it's not only, you're not only going to be saving the environment, you're also going to be saving some money. So you have some temporary, so start by organizing. Yeah, if you've got time with your photos, I'm sure nowadays we take so many photos, and how often do we sit down and kind of go through and get rid of some of the blurred ones? How many of you have kids who have picked up your phone and I don't know, for some reason it's really easy for them to turn on the camera nowadays, because I've got all these weird random pictures from my 2-year-old who just grabs the phone and just starts shooting away pictures left and right. So getting rid of those is good. If well, making up a backup is an option too. Getting rid of the all the photos on your phone. At one point I had photos from 2009 all being saved on my phone, and is it really necessary? So what I did is I moved a bunch of those photos off of my phone into a hard drive, a backup hard drive, so I can eventually access those photos when I need to, but I don't really need them at any given moment to go through and go back 10 years into my life and look at a photo. Yeah, and get rid of some of these useless conversations on your text messaging and your WhatsApp. Check WhatsApp and check Messenger. I'm sure you're going to find a lot of surprises on how you can get rid of quite a bit of data. Now there's some interesting things to lower your consumption moving forward with your smartphone, which is looking into some applications. I actually tried to look for Facebook Lite and Messenger Lite. I didn't find them, but I didn't look long enough. Maybe there's something that I have to change on the settings. But that looked interesting to me, just to have a lighter running application. And I already kind of mentioned this, when you're, do you upload things or photos or take photos in HD or SD? There's settings, for example, on your phone. I think like a lot of the new iPhones, I've got an iPhone that's pretty powerful and could take like these super good videos and HD photos. And yeah, I could turn it on, but I'm taking pictures of, my son and the pool. Okay, if I'm going to take a picture of a sunset, that might be a good reason to get a nice picture, but I by default I keep it on the low settings, and then if I really need to for some fabulous, amazing picture portraits, then I'll turn it on to an HD setting. Using your 3G or mobile networks takes up a lot more data, as a bigger carbon footprint, so use Wi-Fi if you can, and not use mobile data if you have the possibility to. Turning off the location services, which keeps like this constant updating of your data and checking who you are, where you are, what you're doing. It's kind of really big brother, so I don't know. I try and keep all that location services turned off as much as possible. And again, if you've been doing this while I've been talking or not, and you kind of go back and then you look, and I went down to 4 gigabytes and got rid of 10 gigabytes of pointless videos that people were sending left and right, and it feels great. So make note. Please make note of what you do, and with your smartphone, so we can measure it and send it back to the organizers of this event. Okay, now let's get to the cleaning up our computers, and for the translation data that we wanted to talk about. So same thing. Let's start out. This is a lot easier, I think, and this is the one where you're going to have the most fun, because you're probably on your computer maybe right now, is create a temporary folder called Cyber Cleanup. I put mine, I think, on my desktop, and then I just created a link to it, a favorite. So if you don't know how to do that, you just kind of create your folder wherever you want it, and then slide it over into your list of favorites. And so I have my Cyber Cleanup folder. That is where I'm going to put everything into before I delete it. And then I'm going to check what the the amount of data that's in there so that I can measure the impact and see how many files and how much data before I delete it. So that's the first step, is to create this cyber cleanup folder. And again, if you're doing cloud stuff, you can go like we did before. I showed you going into the manage your Google account and view the storage details to see what's saved on your computer. So on Mac, one of the things that I did was, when I showed you earlier, you go up to the little apple, you click on About My Mac, and then you look at storage and you click on Manage, and it shows you how much storage you're using. So I had only 183, about 183 gigabytes left of 1 terabyte on my hard drive. And it shows me, okay, I've got a bunch of stuff being used by email, by documents, a bunch of applications. You notice that I've got 65 gigabytes of stuff in my trash. So I just hadn't emptied my trash for a while. So that would free up a lot of space as well. And you see, for example, you can turn on empty trash automatically. That'll get rid of your items that have been in there for 30 days at least. That was another one of those automated things. And then reduce clutter. Let's see, sort through documents and other content stored in this Mac and delete what is no longer needed. So there's like actual tools that you can use to kind of go through and get rid of some of that clutter. Okay, so I went and I looked at OneDrive, for example. Here was an example of OneDrive just to see how much storage is being used on a OneDrive account that I had. There wasn't very much, but you can kind of look at your OneDrive accounts and go through there as well if you're using OneDrive. Here was the one of my Gmail accounts or Google Drive accounts where I have a lot of my Google Drive files, so almost 70 gigabytes and 9 in email. And there's a really cool tool that I like on Mac, and I'm not sure if it's available for the PC. It's called Grand Perspective. And what it does is it gives you this image of your entire hard drive. And when you scroll over one of the items, or you can focus and make it bigger. Like for example, if I hovered over this item, it shows me down here, well, that's in your movies folder. It says JCIP Ishmael CM project, and it's taking up 28.2 gigabytes on your computer. And you just, wow, that's huge. That's like, almost an eighth or a tenth of my computer maybe, or something. It's massive compared to all this other stuff on my computer. So this was really nice. I like this tool to just kind of see what's taking up a lot of space. It's called Grand Perspective. And you can reveal it in the Finder, or open it with the Finder, and then you could move it into your cyber cleanup folder, for example. So once you have your audit of your files, then we're going to start asking ourselves questions. What is there that's really useful? Get rid of the things in your, spend some time looking through, especially at your desktop, just to kind of give you a clean desktop, and thinking about things that aren't useful. We already talked about sorting and organizing, but I think I want to talk specifically about your translation data now. And you're probably thinking, okay, well, I've got all these translation memories. What's kind of translation data do you have that you've been acquiring over time? You've got translation memories, you've got glossaries, you might have blacklists, you might have reports, like transcheck reports. You could have downloaded old versions of the software. Let's say you're updating kind of regularly. Each time you download a new version of Wordfast Pro, for example, it downloads, I think it's like 300 megabytes. And so if you've been saving all the versions since 2 or 3 years, you maybe have 2 gigabytes of unnecessary, obsolete versions of software, old manuals, and then there's project files, the source file that your client sends to you, and the deliverable and the bilingual TXLF file, right? I don't know if you can think of anything else that you might have as translation data, but oh, good. You've got some people who are, yes, there'll be recordings and, oh, cool. The cleanup, there's an application called Duplicate Annihilator. Thanks, Marion. I'm just looking at some of the comments real quick to make sure I'm not missing anything. So there might be even more things. What I did is, let's see, let me look. Okay, so first of all, I went into one of my project folders. So when I started translating, it was back in 2005, and then in 2010, I sold my company, or sold my clients basically to another company, and then did a trip around the world. And in that 4 or 5 years, I kept, really nice and neatly organized folders and projects. I was using a project management software that did everything really nicely. I had the source files and the target files and my bilingual files, and everything was in there. And I kind of saved that, and then I put it on a hard drive, and then I put it back, and it's back on my cloud right now. And it's been about 10 years since that time that I did those translations. Not once has anybody ever contacted me and asked me for those files, or to resend them something. And I wasn't really selling that as a service to store people's files anyway. So why the heck am I keeping them? And maybe there are some good reasons to keep them. Maybe you want to look back at your work and evaluate how you used to do translations and see, but whoever has the time for that, I don't know. So I just went ahead and deleted all of those old projects, because what's important is that all of those were done using Wordfast. So everything that I translated is captured into a translation memory. Okay. So, and let me give a caveat right now. I'm advising people to maybe delete some data if you're, be careful with this too. I don't want you to come back to me and say, hey, John, I just deleted all my translation memories. I can't find them and they're gone. So of course, be very careful and be cautious. And maybe one thing to do is, I was thinking about this, is before you permanently delete everything in your cyber cleanup folder, wait 2 weeks. I don't think it's going to kill you, or 3 weeks, just to make sure that you didn't do anything stupid, and then delete it, that folder. Okay. So we'll come back to that. With translation memories. So with translation memories, you'll probably, if you've been using Wordfast for a long time, and I don't know who's using which versions, but I switched over to Wordfast Pro about 10 years, no, not 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago, sorry. No, 10 years ago, sorry. 10 years to WordFast Pro 3, and then 5 to WordFast Pro 4, and now which is WordFast Pro 6. And somewhere along the line, the translation memory changed from WordFast Pro 3. The format changed from 3 to 6. Okay, and I have a lot of old WordFast Classic memories and WordFast Pro 3 memories, and that have either already been moved into WordFast Pro 6 now, and I've been using them for a number of years. And so they're kind of just sitting there. Number one is they're sitting there, but also there's some backup files, and there's some JTX and LOCK files that are not really necessary, that get recreated each time. So one of the first things that you can start out by doing is getting rid of some of those, these JTX and lock files. You can sort them based on the date that you've used them. So I'll actually show you some live. Let's look at some really live files. So here's my memories folder. And if I go in and I look on, let's see, sort date last opened. How's that sound? Okay, and we can see that there's some stuff, and as we go down in years, 2015, these are things that I haven't touched since 2015, 2012, 2011, 2009, right? So here's the 2009, these TMs haven't been used or opened. But one of the things that you could do actually before I even go that far back is if I sort by kind, I can see, okay, there's all my new Wordfast Pro memories that I've been using lately and recently. And here we get to all of my Wordfast Classic or Wordfast Pro 3 TMs. And then we get into these other files with this JTX lock and old. And these are things, for example, these JTX, ITX lock files I can get rid of, because if I were to ever open that again with Wordfast Pro 3 or even with Wordfast Pro 5, it would recreate those files, and I don't really necessarily need them. What's important is the text file. So if I go down and I go here, okay, I'm just getting rid of these JTX and these old and these lock files, and just drag and drop them into my cyber cleanup. And you notice that I stopped when I got to that back. So there's a back file, and that's not so important either. I can get rid of that one. You can see I've got this AT doc, there's a TMX, and that's what I wanted to point out with. I just want you to be careful if you're going through, because I noticed on my Mac that it's also putting in these TMX files. So I'm going to kind of be a little bit cautious and make sure that I know what I'm doing. I see, for example, this one, it was in 2019 on March 3rd. Let's see, let me get rid of these ones first. And this one, it says to remote. And I know that I moved that to my remote TM, and this is just kind of an old file that was used a year ago, and it's not something that's really important. So I'm pretty sure that I can get rid of that. And go through just some of these TMs and halt when I get to a TMX, just so I can evaluate if I do need that or not. And once I've gone through some of these back and lock and ITX and JTX, it's going to clean up just a little bit to give me a better view and perspective of what's actually in my TM, make it easier to clean up the other stuff based on dates. So later on, when I would go through all this, and I can sort by, okay, date last opened. And I might at this point decide, okay, if I've switched over from Wordfast Pro to 3 to Wordfast Pro 6 or 5 a long time ago, and now I might go back in here and look at these old TMs from 2009, and just to be sure, like if I want to kind of get rid of them, I might create a translation memory called just like a backup, or actually I have these BTM memories, which are background translation memories, which are based on fields. And I can see, for example, like I have BTM architecture, BTM advertising and PR. This is a field for human resources. Here's med, here's military and defense, mining, textile. And I think there's, look at how small they are. They're really teeny tiny. I maybe had one job that I put into each of these, or a couple of jobs. It wasn't very, they're not my specialty fields. So it's just kind of small. There I could go and I can maybe look to see if I have this BTM with architecture. Did I already, I might have already moved that into Wordfast Pro, and I have a folder of it. Actually, a better way would probably be to sort based on name and look at the names. So here, for example, I've got this Agborst, something that was created in 2018 as a TXT file, and it was put into Wordfast Pro, and Wordfast Pro actually made a backup, and that's one of the last thing I wanted to talk about. So you can kind of look at this, okay, if I wanted to be really, really sure, I probably would go into Wordfast Pro and open up this TM and just double check and make sure that, you know, there's enough, let's see if this is French into English. So if I go into, let's see, TM cleaning and French, and it should be okay if I just do French into English like this, and I'll add a local TM. And here, let's see where, okay, memories. So we said this agburst/re. I've got this one as a backup, and I probably have the original one. Let's see, let me go by name. What Wordfast was doing sometimes is it was creating backup when it was changing the way it indexes the memory in case you had to fall back on a previous version of Wordfast, so you wouldn't have to do it by yourself. So it creates this backup, but the original file was this one. And let me go ahead and open it or add it. Let's see. So there it says old TM version. It's updating the TM. Okay, it added it. I'll create that project and I'll look at, let's see. Okay, let's open it. And under the project TM, I can open up that TM. And here I've got, see how I created another backup, backup number 2, backup number 1. Okay, and so there's how many TUs in there. It says there's 51 translation units in there. Okay, and so now I've got these 2 backup folders because it just updated it again, and these are in case I needed to go fall back on it. This one I can definitely delete. And this one, if I open it in a text editor, let's see, I'll open it with Sublime. We said that there was 51 lines, and here there's about, yeah, okay, so there's about 51 TUs. There's some that are missing in there, 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically I just imported that TM and used it, and I've got this one here as well. And honestly, I think I could probably get rid of both of these TMs right here. And even because they're really small, and I might even just decide, you know, that AGBRST is not even worth keeping on its own, and might even decide to get rid of those 2 both, and take this one and re-import it into a BTM, which I have, which is for the real estate right here. So I've got a real estate translation memory, and maybe decide to do something like that, is to move it in there. I don't want to get too much into details. We could do a whole webinar, and I realize that I'm going over the time that I planned for this. But it's worth, you know, sitting down and looking at all of this stuff. You can see that I didn't even put a dent in this yet, and I have to go ahead and do that. I started to get rid of quite a few things, but I do want to reduce it even further and kind of move some of these really small TMs that are either you put them into a massive, you know, big mama TM that has everything that you've ever done. That's probably the simplest way to do things, just to condense it. If you want to do that, if for example, if I had got rid of these 2 in my cyber cleanup, and I have this one now right here, if I want to move what the content that's in this TM into my real estate TM, I will have to export that as a TMX file. So I'll click there, I'll export it, I'll browse, and then I'll import it into my real estate TM, and then I'd have to get rid of this TM. So I'm not going to do that right now. All right. And of course, the same thing, we can do the same thing with our glossaries and go through and clean up a bunch of those glossaries. I got a bunch of stuff. Look at this, I've got tests that need to be deleted. Here's a test translation something glossary. Okay, let's go through and just get rid of some of this stuff. Save the environment, save the planet. Okay. So back here, again, I think the key thing is what's really going to be easy is getting rid of a bunch of those source files and target files that you've been keeping for a long time. Also, I've been using like this package features, and sometimes I'm sending packages to people for translation. So there's like, I have an outgoing package folder and an incoming package folder. And let's see, the outgoing, you can see, for example, this one was 190 kilobytes. It wasn't that big. Let's see, incoming. But there again, these are just projects. These are kind of working files that's sending data back and forth. Here was one. Okay, this is the one that was, yeah, incoming. It was 17.7 megabytes because the package had some reference materials in it. So that's something the job is done, and I could probably get rid of that as well, because it's just a kind of an intermediary file to send to somebody else. So I'll just drop that in, and there goes 17 more megabytes. All right. Let's see. Yes, and it does take some time, and you need to, I'm a little bit nervous, and I'm probably not as effective as I could be right now. I'm just kind of showing you a few things. When you're on your own and you get some music and you get into your groove, it can go a lot faster, and you kind of are a little bit more aware. Right now, I'm kind of thinking about, how much time I have, and not wanting to mess things up at the same time and go fast. So. But it gets better if you just sit down and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to spend 2 hours this afternoon or this morning just cleaning up my carbon footprint, and then I'm going to fill out that form and let everybody know, and we'll say at the end that we cleaned up like a terabyte or 2 terabytes of data, and we'll see later on what that represents. Okay, so I looked on a PC too. There's some things that you can do. Like the storage sense setting on Windows 10. So if you activate that, it'll get rid of some temporary files and stuff that's in your recycling bin, and check to see what it says. It says, how do we free up space? You can change those settings, but take the time to just kind of keep your hard drive free of clutter. So if you've been following along, or if you've been actually doing some things, I don't know. I thought maybe we'd have time for you to actually do a few things, but maybe you're going to do it afterwards. But again, look and go into once you're all done with all your cleaning, this is what's really nice, is you could just go to your cyber cleanup folder or whatever you called it, and you look at the info or right click on it, and you can see, okay, there's 137.8 megabytes in there. And I think it says somewhere how many items there are. If not, I think you could just select all of them there, and it shows you, okay, 433 items, 426 documents. I think I went through and I was taking, like, I have old versions of Wordfast Classic of 5.6.1 and 5.92, and for some time I had quite a number of versions of Wordfast Pro, like the new versions each. I just got rid of all that stuff as well, because Wordfast has those saved to a certain point on the server, and you can go back and fall back to previous versions if necessary. Okay. And yeah, there was a bunch of old glossary crap and stuff that I got rid of. Felt good. Okay. So, like I said, I was doing this before, and just in preparation, and kind of went through and got up to 28 gigabytes of just pretty easy cleaning up to do on the computer. And at the end of all this, doing my email, not so much a phone, but the email, and then going through some of the files, and you can see that there's still a little bit more time to go, and I think I'm going to spend some time on it this afternoon. I went down to 126 gigabytes that were deleted, and I will share with you a file. Let me think of the best way to share a file with you. If I can do it through here, I forget. Let's see, remote control drawing tools. I don't think I can. Settings, no. I'll share it on the WhatsApp or the event, the WhatsApp, in the Facebook event. 5,856 back files. Ooh, 14 gigabytes of data. Great, Ruth. Okay, so what I was going to show you was this file, this folder. Um, Calcul, no, I translated it, so I have it in English as well. A World Cleanup Day, English, translated. And there's a couple of links that I shared. Okay, well, here it is. Fine. Um, so basically, it's a pretty simple Excel file, and you just type in what you cleaned up. So we said, what did I say, 126? So Ruth did 14 gigabytes. Let's look at what 14 gigabytes is. So 14 gigabytes represents 272 kilograms in CO2. And then if you click on this converter link in this file, it shows you how many CD-ROMs and how many floppy disks and how many USB keys that is and how many low energy light bulbs turned on for 1 year. But it also sends you to this. And I was looking for something in English and I couldn't really find it. So sorry for all of you, but they do have pictograms. So maybe you'll be able to understand. It just basically takes that number of kilograms and shows you what that is equivalent to. And it says, okay, so 535 vegetarian meals, 38 meals with beef, 1,415 kilometers in a car, and high-speed rail, etc. So it's kind of interesting just to see what your impact was on getting rid of some of that data. Okay. And I'm going to just turn off everybody's microphone. All right. So let's see. Then the last thing that you can do is kind of look at your social media accounts, and I won't spend much time on this, but I wanted to point out a couple of things with social media. Is number one, like just simple stuff is getting rid of some old videos. I mean, I looked back at some of the first, I recommend starting with videos because they're the biggest things that take up the most space. And I looked back at my feed and I sorted and I looked back at the oldest videos I had, and some of the videos that were in there, like I was just ashamed of, honestly. Some of them like nobody liked either. So I don't know what I was doing posting it. It was like, when Facebook was the Wild West, the frontier, and you're just kind of discovering it. Um, and so I just went through and got rid of a bunch of those. Like some birthday videos, I didn't realize that they were creating as my videos. Or, when Facebook says, "Oh, you want to create a birthday video for your friend?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure, why not?" Boom, and it was putting that in my videos and my creations. I don't think they were very big, but they're still, they're just kind of there. It was like, "Happy birthday, so and so," with a boo, 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 and so boom, gone. And then some of just these older videos, and I was seeing things that were like, I don't know, as you know 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long. One time I think I got my new phone and I was at a hockey game and I was like, oh, this is great. Or Facebook Live. Okay, I can live stream. It'd be like, I'm like a broadcaster. I was live streaming a hockey game or something and commenting on it. And then I was posting my feed. It was like, okay, this crap is gone. Just get rid of all that stuff. So that's one thing to do. And then another thing that I recommend is if you're adept users of Facebook, um, if you go into your settings, your general settings, and you have to scroll all the way down to the bottom. You don't see it on the left-hand column over here, but all the way at the bottom, there's a video settings. If you click on that, you can change the quality of the default quality of video streams that you get. So it's in standard definition only. And that will drastically reduce your impact, so you're not streaming things in HD. When you go through feeds and it starts to show you a video, it's a small screen anyways. You really need it in HD, and if you do, then you can always change and increase the setting. So this will make it default to standard definition, and again reduce your impact. Just small little things like that. Yeah, so here I was talking about some of these videos. Here are these happy birthday videos, and just some stuff that I didn't really have to have up there and share it anymore. And it's really hard to measure the impact of that because Facebook isn't really as good as telling you how much you have and what data you're stored. I tried and I looked to find out what my data is on Facebook, and I couldn't really find it. And it wasn't really easy to tell when I deleted a video how much it is, but you can kind of guess, okay, well, or write down at least how many videos you deleted just to have an idea of your reduction there. And that's pretty much wraps things up. So I have plenty of time to sit around and chat and answer questions and look at stuff together. And if anybody wants to turn their mic on and make a comment or say something or put your video on, feel free. I will stop sharing my screen, I think, and see everybody who's here. Oh, hi, Justine, Josiane, Sian, Erica, Marion. Good to see all of you. Thanks for joining. Feel free to turn on your camera and say hi to everybody, or share if you have. I already posted the links, but I guess I'll put them again in here. So here's this Cyber World Cleanup form. I'm going to share that. This is kind of important for. Oh yeah, hi David. So just real quick, I started out by sharing. What else are you going to be doing, Helen? Oh, you're going to be cleaning up some cyber data. Good, I hope so. So David, I just kind of talked about the impact of our digital footprint and how we don't even realize how much electricity it's using. It uses like 10% of the world's electricity, and it has a huge impact. And I think it's just a cost that we don't recognize. And so I just shared some facts about that to see how important it is that we should be conscious of, our data footprint and our digital footprint and what we can do to reduce it. And then we started out by looking at inboxes, cleaning up your inbox and email, and then we went, and I don't know when you joined, and then we looked at smartphones, and then we looked at the hard drive, and then finally your social media accounts. So I just shared a link, and that link, hi Barbara, hi Linda, good to see you. That link, if you click on it, it goes to a form, and it's pretty obvious, it's explanatory, so you can, like I said during the presentation, to take your screenshot before or write down what you have, and then at the end of what you're doing, write it down so we can measure the impact. Because all this information is getting fed back up to the organizers so they can say, hey, look at what we did during the Cyber World Cleanup Day. We had these many people involved. They deleted 20 billion files, and we deleted, this many terabytes of data, and that represents. So we'll see really, and I'll share it with you afterwards. We'll collate all of our data, all of us Wordfast users, and we'll be able to say, hey, we all contributed to reduce this much and what this represents, and then we'll also be contributing to a much bigger event and thing that's happening all around the world. So I just wanted to make sure and anybody who fills it out, there's an option to get a free renewal or free license for Wordfast. So there's a pretty good incentive. Hi, Marion, go ahead.
Hi, John, thanks very much for that. That was so useful. You can see behind me, that is part of my decluttering those file boxes.
Yeah.
Files of paper. And that's like a tenth of what we have. I won't show you my actual desk, that's too embarrassing. And every so often I do go into my computer and sort of think, oh my God, what are those files doing there? I really appreciated the bit about TMs, because I'm terrified to go into the TM folder and tinker around. I really don't know what I'm doing. So that was very helpful, what you showed us there. Yeah, and so along with all the papers and the boxes of old cables and hard drives and all the rest of it, yeah, that's another decluttering project, which I started at the start of lockdown. My work kind of all dried up, so I did do a bit of paper decluttering.
Yeah.
But yeah, hard drive decluttering is needed as well, definitely. Storage, yeah. So thanks very much for that. It's
No, thanks for sharing.
given us a good kick in the rear end to spur us into action.
And I can't stress it enough, and I'm glad you brought it up again, just about, TMs and glossaries. And like I said, put it into that cyber cleanup folder, and wait a week or two or even 3 weeks or something before you permanently delete it. You can still get the data and send it back to via the form of how much you're going to delete, but just in case, so you don't make a mistake and you're like, why isn't it working anymore? I can't connect to this TM. Oh no, I deleted it during Cyber World Cleanup Day. But as long as you're using a little bit of common sense and you're aware of what you're doing, you haven't been drinking or anything like that, you probably won't make many mistakes. And in doubt, probably don't erase it unless you want to take the time to really figure out what it is. And that's kind of the question also of how much time do you have to dedicate to this. But it feels good afterwards. It feels light as a feather.
And another place to look, the downloads folder. There is so much that you download accidentally, and or sometimes on a website there's a PDF, and you click the name of you think you're going to see a PDF on your browser, but it actually downloads it. So when I go into my download folder, there's loads of